Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the book The Illustrated Man, published in 1951 and written by Ray Bradbury. One night a traveler meets a vagrant who is a former member of a carnival freak show with an extensively tattooed body. As the two sit together and begin to talk, the former carnival freak tells him that his tattoos were given to him by a mysterious woman, and that his tattoos tell the future. As the two begin to drift off to sleep, the traveler gets hypnotized by the tattoos as they seem to move and reveal stories of the future. So this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while, and this is a first time read for me. I haven't read this book before, and it's actually the first book I've read of 2022. So this is my first 2022 book. Now, the only short story I did read out of this edition is Kaleidoscope, and that's been included in a few different anthologies over the years. And so when I read it originally, it was part of a different anthology, and I read that when I was pretty young. I was like in my early teens. It was the early 90s, I believe, when I read that one. And that actually was my number one pick for my top 5 favorite science fiction short stories of all time. And that was a video I did a while ago when we were all still in lockdown. So I finally got around to reading this book, and I have to say it was a really excellent read. This is a science fiction classic, and if you like anthology books, and if you like classic science fiction, or you're a Ray Bradbury fan, if you're a big Ray Bradbury fan, good chance you probably have already read this book, but if you haven't, this is like a must-read. So there are 2 alternate versions of this book. So one version is the British edition, first published in 1952 by Hart-Davis, and it omits the stories The Rocket Man, The Fire Balloons, The Exiles, and The Concrete Mixer, and adds Usher 2 from The Martian Chronicles and The Playground. And the second version of this book was published in 1997 by Avon Books, and also published by William Morrows in 2001. Now, these versions omit the story The Fire Balloons and instead includes The Illustrated Man at the end of the book. And so this is the version that I've read, the one that has The Illustrated Man at the end. So I have to say, fantastic book, and there's 5 stories in this book that really stood out to me. So the 5 stories are The Veldt, Kaleidoscope, The Other Foot, The Long Rain, and The Rocket. So The Veldt, that was a very interesting story, because what's cool about these older science fiction stories, when you read them, it's interesting to see how forward they were in their thinking as far as technology goes. I mean, they might not get it right down to the details and stuff, but they get pretty close to some predictions. So this story has a smart house in it. And that's something that a lot of people have heard about. Some people might already have them, but it's supposed to be a thing of the very near future, where we'll have smart houses, where our houses will be totally interactive, computer controlled, and things like that. So basically, they have like the ultimate smart house in this story. So it's a parents and their children. They have 2 children, and their children are supremely spoiled. And because the technology everyone has such an easy life with the technology in this future that they've all gone kind of soft. And it gets to the point where the technology it's the house that's actually raising the kids, not the parents, because the house does everything for you. So the parents don't really have to do anything. So the kids, if they want to get dressed or have breakfast or get a bath, everything, the house can do all of that. And even if they need to be babysat or looked after, they have a room called the nursery, which is basically like a holodeck from Star Trek. And they can play in there and explore all these worlds, and basically whatever they can think of can come true in this room. So there's almost like not even any point to leave this house. So then it kind of, I guess the question of the story poses, like, when technology becomes that advanced that a house can raise your kids, what point is there of the parents? And at that point, do the parents become completely irrelevant? And when the parents become completely irrelevant and the technology matters more than the parents to the kids, then what becomes of the parents? So that was a really cool story. I like that one. And then Kaleidoscope, this is a story I've talked about before on my channel. Now this one I read a long time ago, as I said earlier. And what this one is about, a rocket is going through space and collides with a meteor and gets ripped open, and all the crew gets shot out into space. And so they're all drifting out, heading towards their death. And so the one astronaut, the character that we focus on in this short story, he's heading towards Earth, and he's going to fall into Earth's atmosphere and get burned up and die. So they're all being drifted apart, all these astronauts. But they can still kind of talk through their radios. So this one astronaut that's heading towards Earth, he didn't live like a very fun life. Like he played it really almost too close to the vest. He lived very, very conservatively, and he just worked and just, he didn't really have any fun. He had like a boring life. So he has a lot of regrets. He's never really gotten out there and lived, but now it's too late. He's going to die. Where one of his fellow crew members, he really lived a life. He's had all kinds of wives and had all kinds of women, and he's gambled and partied, and he's really lived it up, and he had a good life. He had a fun life. So anyway, he's trying to justify his own life to get around his regrets. So he's faced with all of this. Like, well, really, me and this guy that had the fun life, we're the same, because we're both going to die anyway. And I can just imagine I did all the things he did. He might have the memories, but I can imagine I did it. And isn't that the same? So he tries to justify it that way. Well, in the end, it really doesn't matter if you live a fun life or a crappy life, because you just die anyway. But he's really lying to himself, and he doesn't really convince himself of that, because he didn't do anything, and he feels like he's never done anything that has actually mattered to anyone. So it's a really interesting look at how, you can live your life, or how even in the face of death, it can make you examine your life and how you lived it and things like that. So that's a very good short story. Another one is The Other Foot. And what's interesting about this book, there's a lot of short stories in this book that take place on Mars or involve Mars in some way. So this one is about a Martian colony where it's all African American or black people on this colony. There are no other races, there's no white people, there's nothing, it's just black people. And so they had escaped all the racism in the United States in a rocket, came to Mars and set up this colony, and they've been living there ever since. And then since they left Earth, there was a big nuclear war, and Earth has been destroyed. And so as they're all living their lives and everything's going well, they find out there's a rocket on its way to Mars that has a white guy in it. So then they're thinking, well, some of them are ready to embrace this guy, or some people look forward to the white guy coming here. But there's some other segments of the community that think, okay, well now, if these white people are going to start coming here, now the shoe is going to be literally on the other foot, right? When we were there, this is how they treated us. We had to ride in the back of the bus. We couldn't get the same jobs. We weren't paid the same. So we're going to do it to them once they get here. So one character in particular, he goes out of his way, and they all put up signs and all that. And then when the white guy finally gets there and tells them how Earth has been destroyed and how devastated it is, and they starts to change their mind. So it's a very interesting look. And it's kind of like, I don't know, what I got out of the short story, I guess, is, if you're just going to continue the same cycle of hatred, you're never going to get out of it. Humanity will never ever move past it. Well, I thought that was a neat story, The Other Foot. And another one is called The Long Rain. And this one is, there's a group of astronauts that crash land on Venus. And in this story, Venus, it's like raining very, very heavy. So as they're moving, they're trying to find these like settlements, these sun domes that can give the illusion of sunlight, and they're warm in there and they're dry and you can get food and all that. So they're trying to find one. But it's raining so hard, in fact, that the rain is actually starting to drive them insane. So the one guy's to the point, like, he can't stand being wet anymore. He can't stand the water landing on him, landing in his face. It's driving him nuts. So they finally make it to one of these outposts, but it's destroyed. It's wrecked. And so anyway, now they're starting to lose hope. So they're trying to find the next one. So as they go, these guys are starting to lose their sanity, and then they start to kill themselves off. And then, will they make it to the next one, or will they all completely lose their marbles? So that was another good one, kind of a look at, the human psyche and what happens when people start to go nuts in extreme environments and stuff like that. That was a cool story. And then another one that stood out is The Rocket. And this was an interesting story. And I really like this one because it was kind of a heartwarming story. But it also looked at, it's kind of like looking at the classes, like the rich and the poor. So you have this guy, and he wants to buy a ticket to Mars. He wants to take his family, or he wants his kids to go out into space on a rocket, see the moon, see Mars and all that, but they can't afford it. And there's this other character that at the beginning of the story, they're talking about it, and he's kind of a cynical character. And he says, well, he said, the future's here, but, you know, we're poor. You know, the future's for the rich. You know, all this fantastic technology, all these rockets going to all these other planets and all this kind of thing. You know, that's for the rich. They're the ones that are going to enjoy the future. When us, it's just going to be the same as it always is because we're poor. And this guy, he wants to find a way to give his children or his wife or someone in his family that experience. And so him and his family, he owns a junkyard. He's a junker. They don't have a lot of money. So he's trying to find a way to give them that experience. So he decides he's going to buy a ticket. So he tells his wife, you know, I want to send you to Mars. First, he's going to go himself, but he decides against it. Then he's going to send his wife. So she's all excited. She's going to go, but then she decides she really doesn't want to go with him or the kids. And then he has to pick between which one of his kids he's going to send. And at the end of the day, none of them want to go alone. If they can't go together, they want to go alone. So then he comes up with a clever solution to the whole problem, which I thought was kind of it was a neat ending to the story. And I won't give away the twist, but you'll see what I mean if you decide to read the book. So if you're a fan of short science fiction stories and anthology books, this is a really good edition to pick up. It's not long. My edition is around 275 pages, so it probably might vary. There's a lot of different versions of this book, but this is a must-read. Now, there is a folio edition of this book that I might pick up in the future, maybe. I haven't decided yet. But for right now, this is the paperback that I have, and I have to say, I had a lot of fun reading this book, and I enjoyed the stories in it. And the stories aren't overly long, probably about 10, 15, 20 pages at the most, but a really good read and some great classic science fiction in this book. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.